Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. We all know the failure of the Biden administration to secure our southern border has now become a national crisis. From an overflow at the border to a humanitarian crisis and a security crisis across multiple states, the flow of those who want to enter this country illegally is not only challenging our systems that are currently in place, but has created a culture of lawlessness that is opposed by our American values. And while we still hold dear our country's legacy of legal immigration, the wanton betrayal of our purposeful and bipartisan immigration laws speaks to the greater culture of crime and violence, and more importantly, the ignorance of our existing laws that we see in almost every major American city. We also know that it is not just folks from South America and Central America looking to come to this country to make a better life for themselves and, more importantly, for their families. According to recent data, there is a large uptick in Chinese asylum seekers approaching our southern border, as well as people from Iran and Syria, certainly countries that do not share our best interests. To make matters even more confounding, we have local governments right here in Pennsylvania that want to bring issues associated with the border directly into our communities. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh have declared themselves sanctuary cities that will not cooperate with federal immigration officials when they find someone in their cities in this country illegally. But it doesn't stop there, and in fact, even closer to home, recently Lancaster City voted to end its cooperation with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. According to the Center of Immigration Studies, 13 counties in Pennsylvania consider themselves as sanctuaries, and 4 municipalities have been labeled as welcoming cities. Again, make no mistake, every time that you create a sanctuary city or county, you are literally moving the national border to your own neighborhood. And when the government picks and chooses which laws are important, they are inviting the people that live under their watch to simply do the same. This must stop. Thankfully, we have a strong group of House Republicans who have introduced legislation to combat illegal immigration here in Pennsylvania. From outlawing sanctuary cities to being stronger against the kinds of crime and violence we've seen in other cities stemming from illegal immigration, and more importantly, requiring a prosecutor to notify the U.S. Immigration and Customs officials if the prosecutor has a reasonable basis to believe that a defendant in a criminal matter is an illegal immigrant, as Representative Rigby just put forward yesterday. Pennsylvania's House Republicans are here to take action where the federal government, and the Biden administration in particular, have simply failed. We have or will be introducing these proposals by many of our members. We will be talking about them as standalone bills. I also know that many of these members have already put their ideas in as amendments to legislation where appropriate. This is about our communities, this is about our safety, and this is about telling Pennsylvanians that our laws do in fact matter. We cannot afford to let our Commonwealth turn into the chaos we've seen elsewhere. Thank you, and now I'll introduce Representative White.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here as we discuss a serious issue impacting the safety of our communities and respect for the rule of law in our country. On January 27th, a group of illegal immigrants viciously attacked and injured 2 NYPD officers, punching and kicking them. They were simply trying to keep people off of the streets and New Yorkers safe. What we've all seen on television was shocking and horrifying video as they viciously attacked and injured those 2 New York Police Department officers. Perhaps even more shocking, though, was the video in the days following the attack. After arrests were made, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg released several of the suspects without bail, leaving them free to roam the streets, to commit more crimes, and simply disappear before their next court date. Upon his release, one of the suspects infamously raised his middle fingers at media cameras as he left the courtroom. Make no mistake, that gesture wasn't just pointed towards a camera. It was pointed towards our police, our laws, and every law-abiding American citizen. That is why I introduced House Bill 2214 to make it known that this behavior will not be tolerated in Pennsylvania. HB 2214 will require a minimum bail of $1 million for anyone charged with assaulting a law enforcement officer in Pennsylvania. Everyone is entitled to due process in our Commonwealth, and if you stand accused, you will have your day in court. What you don't get to do is walk on our streets after being charged with such a heinous crime, free to commit more violent acts. When I offered this proposal as an amendment to a bill on the House floor, the entire Democrat majority voted against it. While many of our colleagues across the aisle are protecting criminals, House Republicans are committed to protecting victims and preventing everyday citizens from becoming victims of violent crime. We cannot stand by while the radical left puts criminals first and victims last. I am proud to live in a welcoming country that embraces immigrants from all nations who come to the United States in search of a better life through our legal immigration process. But sadly, criminals are taking advantage of chaos at our southern border to enter this country illegally and engage in criminal activity upon their arrival. My common sense bill offers increased protection for our police officers, which should not be a partisan issue. Our police officers deserve to know that their lawmakers here in Harrisburg and their communities back home have their backs. This legislation sends a clear message to those living here and looking to come here. Pennsylvania has zero tolerance for violence against law enforcement. I am proud to introduce our next speaker, Representative Mike Cabell.
Thank you, Representative White. Good morning. I'm Rep. Mike Cabell from the 117th Legislative District in Luzerne County. I'm the prime sponsor of House Resolution 294, which urges our federal government to more closely monitor so-called ghost flights. My resolution calls on Congress and all relevant federal agencies to review and strengthen the policies governing flights transporting large numbers of undocumented immigrants into the country and into our Commonwealth. These ghost flights are untracked and unmonitored. They circumvent and abuse immigration law, undermining hard work and dedication of immigrants who enter the country legally. Additionally, these flights pose significant immigration enforcement challenges for federal and local agencies and present potential risks to public safety and national security. You may recall the news stories back in December when a plane with 200 migrants on board was diverted to Philadelphia International Airport due to weather. The passengers were then bused to their original destination, which was New York City, where the influx of migrants is creating a crisis, according to Mayor Eric Adams. In my area, there has been reports over the last couple of years of ghost flights with unaccompanied minors on board landing in Scranton-Wilkes-Barre International Airport. These mysterious flights came to the attention of U.S. Congressman Dan Muser, who was so concerned that he introduced legislation to help stop them. I believe it is prudent that federal officials collaborate with state and local authorities, as well as non-governmental agencies, to ensure immigration policy is implemented in a safe and humane manner. If ghost flights are allowed to continue, they not only risk the safety of our communities, but also the safety of the immigrants involved. The practice of ghost flights is simply unsustainable, and we need to urge our federal partners to reconsider this policy, which will create a new humanitarian crisis here in Pennsylvania if it continues to go unchecked. I will now be introducing Representative Scheuren.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Representative Cabell. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Representative Donna Scheuren. I'm sure you've seen on the news recently stories across the country about homeowners and property owners who suddenly have someone living on their property claiming to be a tenant and they won't leave. This is a practice known as squatting, and there have been multiple high-profile incidents of squatting in the last couple of months. First, there was Leonel Moreno, a Venezuelan migrant who immigrated to our nation illegally, posted a video on TikTok encouraging illegal immigrants to come to the United States and take advantage of our lax laws against squatters to invade unoccupied homes across the country. Then in New York, Nadia Vitel's an innocent woman returning from Spain to her dead mother's apartment, prepared to renovate it for a new tenant, when she was surprised by two squatters now living in the apartment. These two criminals then stood up, beat her to death, bashed her head against the doorway, stuffed her in a duffel bag, and threw her in the closet. They then proceeded to steal her Lexus to get away. They were only caught because they got into a car accident right down the road here in Lower Paxton Township, and police were able to match those plates to the stolen Lexus and arrest them. Or how about Philadelphia? Chris Hart bought a home in Northwest Philadelphia renovated it, and prepared to sell it at the end of 2023. However, on December 8th, his real estate agent received a call from one of his neighbors that people were moving in and had taken the sign down. Immediately, Chris called the police. However, since the squatters claimed that they were renting the home, the police said there was nothing they could do. Chris then returned the next day with all his paperwork, the deed to the home, the purchase agreement, the sale agreement, everything someone like all of us would provide to prove they owned the home. Police still did not evict the squatter because they had squatter rights. And Chris ended up having to pay the squatters $1,200 to vacate and an additional $600 to clean up the house and change the locks. This is an issue that could have been solved in seconds by the police. But because of squatters' rights, a property owner had to bribe them to leave. I'll use the same words that one of our senators, John Fetterman, recently stated in an interview describing squatters' rights. This is crazy. Squatters should have no rights whatsoever. How can our colleagues pretend that this is anything other than breaking the law? That's why I've proposed the Homeowner Protection and Squatter Eviction Act. It's time we focus our laws on protecting legal homeowners instead of criminal squatters. My legislation would first allow municipal and state law enforcement officers to immediately remove a squatter from the property if the homeowner signs an affidavit stating that he or she is the lawful owner of the residence. The signer of the affidavit would be liable for unlawful falsifications if they are found to not be the owner and face penalties themselves. Second, increase the penalty for any squatter who causes $1,000 or more in property damage while unlawfully occupying a residence to a felony of the first degree. Allow home and land owners to seek treble damages and attorney's fees via a civil action against the squatter. And lastly, require law enforcement to notify Immigration and Customs Enforcement if the squatter is an illegal immigrant and to comply with all and any ICE detainer lodged against that illegal immigrant. These are clear and common sense proposals that will protect home and property owners across Pennsylvania from this sudden increase in criminal squatter activity. We must take action now, or we will have to deal with the consequences of our inaction very soon. Thank you, and I will now turn over the podium to Representative Warner. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Scheuren. I'd like to thank the colleagues that have joined us here today. I'm Representative Ryan Warner. I represent Pennsylvania's 52nd District. You know, I often hear from supporters of illegal immigration in sanctuary cities that they support these concepts because they're trying to prevent a humanitarian crisis. But as Leader Cutler said earlier, I believe they are creating one here in our own country. We have a legal immigration process in this country where we welcome people from all walks of life and from countries around this world. But when you allow millions of unvetted individuals into this country, you're not preventing a humanitarian issue. You're creating an issue of national security. And if you ask the parents of Lake and Riley, I guarantee they'll tell you that you're allowing an issue of personal safety. See, if you don't like the current laws in this country, if you don't like the current immigration laws, you have the ability to change them. It's how our form of government works. But to openly defy the laws of this country, do you realize how dangerous that is to the principles of our republic? How dangerous that is to the principles of democracy. Heck, there's a lot of federal laws I don't like. But that doesn't give me or anyone else here the right to openly defy those laws and grant ourselves sanctuary status from those laws. Illegal immigration and sanctuary cities themselves are dangerous. And all you need to do is look at who supports these concepts. Who supports sanctuary cities? The cartels, MS-13, terrorists, drug smugglers, human traffickers. It's for these reasons that I support the legislation brought before us today, and that I've also introduced House Bill 1840, which will prevent municipalities and counties across this Commonwealth from designating themselves as sanctuaries to illegal immigrants. The bill would also require law enforcement officers who have a reasonable cause to believe an individual being arrested is not legally present in our country to notify the appropriate Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office. This bill would also grant legal standing to any person injured to sue a municipality or county that released an individual with a detainer and did not make a good faith effort to contact the proper immigration authorities. This bill right now is stuck in committee, but I am encouraged that at least 2 Pennsylvania municipalities, including Westmoreland County, a portion of which I used to represent, have reversed their sanctuary status. I commend them and all state, county, and local leaders who have committed themselves to living up to their public safety responsibilities. Folks, this is the United States of America, and citizens here have every right to know who is entering their country. It is time to end sanctuary cities, and it is time to get a hold on illegal immigration. Thank you all.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who spoke. I have asked all the Republicans to please arrive on the floor on time, so I need to make sure that I myself am one of them. So we have time for maybe a question or two. Yep, go ahead, Mr. Caruso.
Any comment on Kevin Boyle's arrest warrant?
Well, it's certainly my hope that the Democrats have dealt with the concerns we raised with them earlier this morning, but we're going to go to the floor and we'll find out very soon.
Were you told to be on the floor for an 11 a.m. roll call?
Pardon me?
Were you told to be on the floor
That's
for
standard
11 a.m.?
protocol,
Okay.
Stephen.
All right.
So yep, like every day, I'll be there on time. Hopefully we start on time. Other questions? That is the one thing that we as Republicans do. We show up and we work very hard on behalf of our constituents. So other questions? I will admit the lights kind of make it hard. I don't hear anybody, so thank you. Stay tuned.
Yeah, good job, everybody.